feature presentation.
Welcome back to another Untitled Movie Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matt Rohrbeck. Alongside, he's allergic to tomatoes, but he is tomato meter approved, Eric Marchin. Yippee! That's wizard, Eric. We're back in the Star Wars universe, as today we are reviewing all of season 2 of Andor, a Star Wars story. This one will be...
Really? Shoot. I forgot something. I thought we were reviewing the death of Watto.
I hate you so much. I was like, what did I do wrong? I can't wait to see if Watto plays a huge role in this season of Andor. I could
Spoiler
only imagine.
alert, he doesn't.
Yeah, that will be the only spoiler for this episode. Watto is not in Andor season 2. This will be spoiler free moving forward. We are going to review all 12 episodes of season 2 of Andor, but completely spoiler free. So only stuff that's been in trailers, things like that. We won't go into detail of what will happen. And I will make sure that happens because this is a different one for me. I didn't have time to watch Andor. So this is going to be an Eric Marchin review of Andor season 2 with Matt moderating. And I'm very curious to see what
moderator Matt.
Yeah, moderator Matt. Let's say that 10 times fast. I'm excited to get Eric's thoughts because I've talked to you a little bit about this season. I'm excited to watch this season. I think Andor season 1 is top tier Star Wars, one of the best television shows from a few years ago, let alone the best probably Star Wars show in general. So I'm excited to hear what Eric thinks about season 2.
But is it a show? That's the question.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I'll let you jump into your review, Eric, but from everything I've heard from people and how, Tony Gilroy and others have been talking about the show is almost, it's like told in 4 chapters that almost seem like a quadrilogy of movies in sets of 3, right? So that sounds really cool. And even the release strategy kind of backs that up in putting the episodes out in blocks of 3. So as you guys are listening to this, the first 3 episodes will be available on Disney Plus for you to stream. And then subsequent weeks, you'll get another 3 episodes. And those are kind of like individual kind of sets of chapters for this story. With, it's not a spoiler to say what in between those, they've already talked about that it's each set is like a year and then a time jump, right?
Yes,
or like
yeah,
a time jump of a year,
and you'll
leading
get
up to Rogue One.
This, it's interesting because this first chapter or series, episodes 1 through 3, like it sets that up, but I think you'll get it after the next set where you'll understand that it is moving forward in time and curating certain aspects of the narrative, and that might be the hardest part, I think, for people, because Andor season 1, like, obviously is such a beautifully written, politically charged piece, but it did take a little bit of time to get going. The first few episodes that we watched, and we didn't get the full season to watch when we were reviewing it initially. So we had to go back and watch the entire show unfold. This time around, watching the whole thing, it felt as though, okay, I understand where everything is going. But I think when you're restarting the deck every 3 episodes, clearing the table, so to speak, and setting up, the chess pieces, the pawns all over again, that might throw some people off a little bit because they might be invested in one particular series of threads. Because that's the thing as well. This is multiple stories going on simultaneously in each trilogy of episodes. And so those strands, while they all are well kind of dovetailed into each other and connect when they need to and work, once you get to the end of a chunk or a block of them, you're starting over again, and it almost feels a little bit like, oh, you have to get used to this new section.
Almost like 4 seasons of television in one season.
Yeah, and I think the strongest stuff comes later in the series. I think episodes 8, 9, and 10 are truly the standout episodes. I don't know if it matches anything that was in season 1, but season 1 also had the element of surprise, right? Where it kind of was the show that was like, this is Star Wars for adults, right?
Yeah.
You know, this is the show where like some people were really torn because it didn't feel like Star Wars. It felt like House of Cards, right? Which Tony Gilroy
Like
wrote
an
on.
HBO show sometimes too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Or a war movie or a war series. And that's always been Tony Gilroy's, you know, main sort of function. Like I've listened to the Moment podcast hosted by Brian Koppelman again, and it's from Tony Gilroy has been on multiple times, but during the 2018 episode that he's on when he's promoting Beirut, which he wrote, and he wrote that years ago, he talks about not being a Star Wars fan in the slightest. He has no reverence for it. We've talked about this on the show as well. And in doing so, like, he even going back to it, I think was important because he says in this interview that he never wants to do a Star Wars series. He never wants to do anything else. Like Rogue One was enough for him. So I'm curious to know like what changed in terms of his opinion on that. But when you watch this show, it feels closer to say something like Casablanca or the Battle of Algiers. It doesn't, or even more recently, How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Like it feels like a revolutionary piece of filmmaking. It doesn't always feel like a Star Wars show. Like the iconography,
that's
there.
okay though.
Oh, I love
like,
that.
Yeah,
I love that. But I can also understand fans of Star Wars looking at this and not supporting it in the way that maybe they do, you know, some other television shows or movies. And it feels like maybe quote unquote it's trying too hard. I think it's astonishing, and I think it's the right move where you can still do the Book of Boba Fett, you can still have the Mandalorian
and
Grogu and all of that, but there's plenty of room in the galaxy, in this narrative, in this universe, to expand on politics without, you know, Jedis and
bogging
supernatural
it
and all that. And
trade agreements.
It feels closer to Star Trek almost than it does
interesting
Star Wars. Like it's the same thing with you know, when Nicholas Myers came on to direct Star Trek episode or Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, his whole thing was that I want to make a submarine movie. I don't care about Star Trek. And this is the same exact
But then that's
thing.
always interesting, right?
It is, because they're not holding it to being precious, and but so they put story and character first.
Exactly. But then they can still look at this universe that was built and kind of take the most interesting aspects to them without all the baggage of years of being a fan or anything, and then kind of just look at it for what it is, going, what is happening in this universe at this period of time? How can I apply that to the real world? How can I apply that to things that I'm interested in? And then make it its own thing while still being a very important piece of the lore of Star Wars. That's what fascinated me about the first season. And that's what sounds like the second season is doing as well, right? Because what I love about, you know, Star Wars is, you know, ebbs and flows. And I think we're in one of those kind of, you know, we just had Star Wars Celebration in Japan, but I felt like the excitement, if you were there, you're a hardcore fan, but I feel like the excitement around Star Wars is kind of waned a little bit.
We're in the
like,
valley right now, Matt.
We are. And I think that, you know, we haven't had a movie in a number of years. You know, the end of the Skywalker saga wasn't well received. You know, certain series haven't been well received. And you say we go every time we talk about toxic Star Wars fans. And I think even that has kind of died down a little bit, because I just feel like
this is going to come back with this.
I know, but I just feel like people have kind of distanced themselves a little bit, which I find kind of, and even me, like I haven't gone back and finished Skeleton Crew yet, right? Same. I liked what I watched of Skeleton Crew, and I think it's also,
and that's the polar opposite to this, right? Like that's what I'm talking about.
And I love that both things can exist, though. I had a blast watching those couple episodes of Skeleton Crew, but there was something, I don't know if it was oversaturation or just kind of, it didn't feel special to me anymore, where it just like nothing drew me to go. I want to go back and watch it, but it just felt like another thing that came out. Right. And I I worry a little bit when it gets into that kind of serious HBO territory, if it just feels like another thing, right? And doesn't quote unquote feel like Star Wars. But I like that Star Wars can be so many different things and can appeal to adults and can make a kids program and can do all these things. So I really appreciate Andor for that. I think even having these screeners, I've just been busy with life stuff and I haven't, I wanted to watch them. I'm very excited to jump into these first 3 episodes
And it's a
tonight.
lot after having watched all of The Last of Us as
I
well,
think that was
so
it too,
close.
yeah.
Like, and even though right
A
now
lot of TV right now.
a lot
yeah.
of TV and a lot of good stuff. Like
Oh,
there's a
don't get me
lot
wrong.
of great
We're
stuff right
a
now.
lot of really good
The
TV.
studio is still on
Yeah.
and it's awesome, and The Last of Us, and it's also very dense and weighty, and The Last of Us will take a lot out of people, and I know you knew that going into it because like there's a feeling of this is going to be you're giving yourself emotionally to it as well, right? You care about the characters, you care about the world building. I will say, like, the thing that impressed me the most about season 1 of Andor, and I think you feel similar, and most people, I believe, do as well in terms of loving it, is that the writing is the star, and
Yeah.
that it's dialogue, it's set pieces, it's construction of scenes, and how it plays certain characters and ideologies. Everything feels perfectly in tune, but it also has these characters existing in a timeline where where everything is going, but they can still be people. They can still be characters within the present moment. And that is so exciting when you can put aside your suspension of disbelief and not think about, okay, I know this person's fate, or I know that this is going to reconnect to Rogue One and this timeline, and like the continuity is there, and you're beholden to that continuity. But in this chapter, this section, it feels like, okay, like we're watching these people make up the story as they go, and that's what's really wonderful about it. It doesn't feel dictated, it feels spontaneous. It feels like the choices that characters make inform how the narrative works. It's not simply the showrunner, it's not the talented writers behind it. I think like all of this really works. The performances are amazing still. I really like that Diego Luna, even though it is called Andor, feels more of like, again, a puzzle piece or a pawn in the story. He's a part of an ensemble and he's doing really great work here. But obviously Stellan Skarsgård, always good. Genevieve O'Reilly has one great speech that I think will really sum up how a lot of people are feeling in our world
Yeah.
right now. And that's something as well that, you can project a lot of. It feels very much like Tony Gilroy was like, okay, I'm seeing what Rian Johnson is doing with the Knives Out movies. I'm going to write something that's reactionary and politically, engaging and motivated. And you can obviously take elements of what's going on in the Ukraine right now. You can take, the story elements feel very much like parallel to Israel and Palestine. It's all there, and it's not hiding that fact. And that's a risk for
Totally. Yeah.
someone to do that. And also it's astonishing that that Tony Gilroy was able to pull that off in a commercial package. This is something that you wouldn't talk about in a popular franchise that is geared towards profit or making money. You want to
Well,
keep it as broad and as neutral as possible. This is not that at all.
that sounds awesome. Like I've always been a huge proponent of the Trojan horse method,
Yeah.
right? Like packaging something as a popcorn, blockbuster, but
We
then
saw that with
having,
Sinners.
yeah, Sinners was a great comparison there. And it's I love that. And from everything I've heard, I'm so glad that, he was able to kind of have the freedom to do that in this series. One thing I wanted to ask you about, one thing I loved about the first season is that they felt like they shot on location a lot. Did that feel similar here?
Yes, there
Yeah.
is one section that does feel like it's been green screened a little bit, and that is in the first block of episodes, in the first 3 episodes. I don't think
Well,
it's
I mean,
really
in
a
a Star Wars
spoiler.
show,
It's
you
it's a
have
wheat
to, right?
field. It's a wheat
Yeah.
field. Like it's a farming community, and that section, there are moments where it does feel like, oh, are they using what do they call it? This
the volume or
the
whatever.
volume, yeah. And but there are other times where you're watching this, like in that first season, and everything feels tangible and real and in the moment, and like actors aren't, acting opposites tennis balls, and
Yeah.
they're real environments, and they can go outside and touch a blade of grass and do all of that kind of stuff and interact with people, and that just adds a little bit more value to it. And I think, like, right now, like, I mean, that's another talking point, right? Like it feels very political in its motivations there too, in terms of like what we're dealing with AI, right? In terms of post-production, and
Sure,
everything
yeah.
being very manufactured and processed. This brings it back to that classic in camera practical feeling, that when you're watching it, you can reach your hand out and like maybe touch a piece of equipment, or like especially in Lucian's shop, like all of the antiquities that are around,
Yeah.
like it feels like they're real and vibrant, and just like little things like that, I think, like add touches that make the show tactile and tangible to viewers that maybe aren't necessarily interested in Star Wars as well. Like that's where almost like its appeal can widen a little bit for people that aren't necessarily Star Wars fans, because I would say like this is almost for non-Star Wars fans in a way, not to sound contrarian, but like if you want to convince a non-Star Wars person to maybe give this a shot, Andor season 1 and Andor season 2, I think, is a really good place for someone to start. And it's not, you're not completely out of the loop either. Like it feels like it still exists in its own plane, but it still is very much a part of the overall timeline as well. And I also rewatched Rogue One, and I'll say that it didn't really change my opinion of that movie.
Did you watch it after you finished this season?
I did.
Okay,
And it
cool.
made me want to rewatch Rogue One. Like that's the thing. Like as soon as I finished Andor season 2, I was like, I need to rewatch Rogue One. I have that
Yeah.
4K copy just sitting on my shelf. I didn't really care for it. I think
Really?
like,
I think it ages
fine.
very well.
I think it's fine. I think the story is great. I think because it is such a Frankenstein movie,
Sure,
that you have Gareth Edwards, who is a very talented filmmaker, trying to do his thing, but then, the studio getting cold feet about that, and then bringing in Tony Gilroy to do reshoots and rewrites. And as he says, Tony Gilroy says, to save the production. It just feels tonally jarring to Andor as a whole.
yeah.
Like there's just, Andor feels smoother. Like not that it's like,
Well, it seems like it's his project from the beginning,
Yes.
right? Instead of him coming in and clearly they passed the reins of Rogue One to him during those reshoots.
Definitely.
And now it's very much his movie now, and his show. So I could definitely understand that. I like Rogue One for what it is. It's been a while since I've watched it as well, and I'm sure after I watch this season, I will do the same. I will go back. I've been craving to go back and watch a lot of Star Wars. It's been a while since I went through the entire series and things like that, and it seems like it's still going to be a little while till we get a movie, right? We have Mandalorian and Grogu.
That title's got to change.
It's got to.
And Starfighter was announced as well.
Right.
Which on one hand, it's like, oh, it's Ryan Gosling, which
Yeah.
is great. But then it's like, oh, Sean Levy's directing it. So are we just going to get the
Yeah.
Adam Project, but in Star Wars form?
Yeah. I mean,
Switching one
yeah,
Ryan for another.
it's a safe choice, I guess, but like it's just I don't know what we're gonna get with that. But it's like it's good that they are taking risks and they're doing something like this, and it's still within their wheelhouse of a prequel and existing characters, but to do something that seems so different for Star Wars is why I really love the series and why I'm excited to watch it. So yeah, anything else you wanted to kind of say about the series before we kind of wrap up? Or?
Yeah, I'll just sum it up for the Rotten Tomatoes quote. Andor season 2 has Tony Gilroy rewriting Star Wars for our times, speaking truth to power and pushing far, far away from conventional franchise tropes to make this bellwether series one of the best sagas in the beloved universe. Story, character, and dialogue will fuel progressive fandom. while watching Andor season 2, I sometimes asked myself, has that word or geopolitical comparison ever been voiced in Star Wars and discussed with maturity? Gilroy values complexity instead of spoon-fed commercialization. That's what makes revisiting Rogue One such a fascinating experience compared to the prequel series. It's rudimentary, it still aligns with the greater good.
Love that. And you know what? Star Wars isn't always inherently been sort of political and about, war.
I
And
mean, it's in the title.
it's just like, yeah. And yes, had this kind of,
but it was for
pulpy-
kids too.
Yeah, it was this pulpy kind of fun thing, even though it had some messaging in there, but it was kind of undercut by its fun factor, I guess, right? Where maybe this isn't as fun. It
No.
can be fun, but it is still doing what Star Wars ultimately is about. That's why I think it's kind of a cool kind of modern.
It's most
take to it.
impressive.
There we go. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. We'll have more Andor content. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, if you're listening to this right away, it might be tomorrow. But there should be an interview up with Stellan Skarsgård and Genevieve O'Reilly that Eric just did today. So you guys can listen to that. A nice 10-minute interview with them. I think it's quite lovely. Maybe listen to that after you've watched those first 3 episodes. I think that's a great interview. Eric and I will also have reviews up for The Legend of Ochi, I'm blanking already. What else do we have to do?
Havoc.
Until Dawn, Havoc, a few other things. So
we'll be
it's,
catching up with The Last of Us season 2, episode 2
Cast
shortly.
of Us will be back
Yep.
very, very soon. Sinners, I would love to talk about, which we haven't yet. So there'll be lots of fun stuff coming up in the next little while. We'll just do a Sinners spoiler cast at this point because it's been out for a little while. But what a movie that is.
Oh, yeah.
We're eating good right now when it comes to TV and movies. So lots of good stuff out there. But check out all the rest of our work. Eric's got an interview with David Cronenberg coming out.
For The Shrouds. Yep.
Yeah, check that out. So much good stuff. So to find all of our stuff, head over to Letterboxd, which is untitled_movies. And you can find all of our stuff on social media at Matt Rohrbeck and at EM6211. Until next time.
May the force be with you always.
Wish you.
Wish you.
Bye.
Whiskey.
Everybody.